Thanks, Emma. Just a brief video introducing the GDV Hub and a very quick welcome to everybody and introductions. So today we have the pleasure of having George Havakis, from GISSA, who will be with us to answer any questions with regard to the Aspec standards. We've got Gabby Van Wyk from Digital Hive, who was here with us as well to answer any questions. I'm not sure, Assis Manandahar, has he joined us yet?
There he is.
Yeah, Assis.
Yep, I'm here.
Welcome, and Assis will do a quick demonstration of the GDV Hub. Assis is a senior consultant with OneSpatial and has been the major developer for what we have to date. And Andrew Bashfield, our sales manager, who is going to give you a bit of a brief run through on what the GDV Hub is about. So I will hand over control to you, Andrew.
Okay, so what's the problem that we're trying to solve, and why is GDV Hub important to the Aspec community? Well, we're talking about the submission by consultants, by contractors and property developers of as constructed infrastructure, such as pipes and pits and cables and so on, to councils and to other referral authorities. The problem is incomplete data, unverified and unvalidated data, can be created as a result of manual and time-intensive processes being undertaken. And if that's the case, then this creates a backlog of information, and then less checks are run on the data. It causes longer-term issues with valuations, with the inability to create efficient and effective maintenance programs, and there's a potential for health and safety issues. So we're about addressing that problem, creating a process that involves integrity, easy workability, and in particular, adherence to data governance. And by that, we mean the data is still constructed by the contractors, and the chain of custody still falls back on the contractors. We are not taking over that responsibility. Even as the data goes through this GDV Hub process for validation, it remains your data. Now, we call this software as a service, and that means to actually take advantage of this service, there's nothing that you need to install. We have created the website, excuse me, and all you need to do is upload your data for validation. The GDV Hub in its first instance is all about compliance with the specific data standards around Aspec, but it does have the capability of broadening out to other standards too. So wrapping up, ultimately, it allows the asset owners to manage their assets effectively and efficiently, and the data creators too. Andre, can you move it forward for me, please? Thank you. I've explained the challenge, the industry that's involved, but how did we actually solve it? Well, OneSpatial, in conjunction with Digital Hive, used technology, well-established technology that's been in place for over 30 years, one integrate and one data gateway. And we brought that together with Digital Hive's intellectual property around the Aspec standard. And of course, the benefit to the customer is that we've created this web-based portal for lodging plans. It's such an easy way of doing the data validation compared with trying to do it internally, where you're really checking your own data. This way, there is an external authority to check it. And we'll actually give demonstrations of that in just a moment. And I've made the bullet point there highly configurable because you have the ability as a user of the system to actually set it up the way that is most efficient and most logical for you. Next slides, please. Now, the first implementation of the GDV Hub is specifically around the Aspec standard. And as you would know, Aspec has 6 different disciplines and they're listed. The first implementation of Aspec of the standard is taking advantage of DSpec and RSpec. And we also can cater for multiple different file types shapefiles, map info, and geopackage, which is the open source format endorsed by the Open Geospatial Consortium. The first instance of this, and the one we're going to demonstrate today, uses shapefiles, and that probably caters for more than 50% of the industry. Next slide. So just having a look at some of the features of the GDV Hub. As I mentioned, it's a cloud-based software as a service system. It validates and does logical corrections to the Aspec standard, and I mentioned the formats. The user has no need for any logging expertise. You'll see exactly how it works in just a few minutes when Assist gives a practical demonstration. Aspec has multiple versions of standards, and this system caters for previous versions of Aspec as well as the current version. So if you haven't upgraded to the current one, that's okay. The system will still work for you. It's user-friendly. You'll see how user-friendly in just a moment. And one of the interesting features is you don't need to say, I'm uploading Aspec or I'm uploading Ospec. The system will automatically determine that based on the inspection of your data sets. And the way it works for you, you pay as you lodge. And there's a dashboard, management dashboard, so that your manager can actually see how many of these submissions are being uploaded and how many are being validated, how many are being corrected, and what the issues are with any of those submissions. I mentioned before, there's no need to purchase any software. This is just a service. We provide auto correction as an extra service on top of the validation service. You may choose to always go for that. We provide schema mapping so that if it happens that you have some different naming conventions in your organization, you can actually map that against the standard naming conventions and save that mapping so that it can be used over and over without any extra work. And you can process multiple disciplines within a single lodgement. So in summarizing all those features, benefits, and the process, we're focused on data validation and providing QA assurance. We do logical correction, and we'll show that in a moment. And the system provides schema mapping, automated schema mapping, and the ability for you to save any particular changes you want to make to that mapping for any future use. Thanks, Andre. Now, as a customer of the system, as a user of the system, there are two levels of user access. The first is for those people who are actually submitting the data sets for lodgement. And the second group of users are the administrators. So within your organization, you would have an extra person who oversees perhaps multiple users in your organization. And that gives you a look at the administration user interface. Next slide. Okay, 3 basic kinds of corrections. We correct spelling mistakes in your schema, and we provide that mapping process so that you can identify what the errors are. Next one. We provide corrections to data types. So for instance, if you've put in date information and we can identify that a particular field is a date field, but it's not a date field exactly the way Aspec requires, we can make that correction on your behalf. And the second one is the schema mapping. Just note that at no time are we actually changing your raw data. We are not making graphical changes, and we are not changing your raw data. So the data always is the data that you supply. And we will provide more forms of correction in the future.
Well, we'll hand it over now to Assist, if you want to share your screen now. And
thanks, Andre.
Go through a demo.
Thanks, Andre. Yeah, without further ado, I'll share my screen and go through the GDV Hub. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Yes. So as Andrew mentioned, GDV Hub is a SaaS portal, and we just need, it's already hosted, we need a login. So once we've set up with their account and we've provided a username and password, you can log into the GDV Hub. So we've got a user sign-in process, and after the user signs in, we can see a number of tiles here under the first homepage, which is My Assignments. So this is the normal user, which Andrew mentioned earlier, which is the actual submitter or the submitter of the files. Here we can see multiple tiles where we have 3 tiles for corrections and 3 tiles for validation. The 3 tiles for corrections are different in a sense that they are for the different file types, the geopackage, map info, and shapefile. Similarly, for validation, we've got geopackage, map info, and shapefile. So I'll demo on a validation shapefile. So let's click on the tile, and here we can see a few tabs. The submissions page, where you have the list of previously submitted records. You can see the user, the data name, the file name, and the outcomes of those submissions, along with the date and times. We've got some information here, which gives us what GDV Hub is about, and I've got a sample data set which you can download and practice and try out by yourself as well. We've got a dashboard which shows the top violated rules in all of your data or all of your submissions, and we also have a graph showing the conformance over time. So it'll show how the data validations, how they are improving over time, and that makes it easier for the validation process. And yeah, basically your process is improved by looking at this. We can know how the process is improved through these metrics. The final tab here is the saved mappings, which I'll go through in a few minutes, which I'll demo in the submission. So to start a submission, we go to the submissions page, submissions tab, and click the start a new submission at the bottom right corner. And here we are presented with 2 drop boxes, the README file, which is optional, and we've got the sample shape file, and uploading to this is quite easy. You can either drag and drop to this box, or you can click on the box to open up browser, Windows Explorer, and so I'm going to submit a shape file, which I'll have to zip up before. So I'll zip the shape file. I have the zipped shape file here, and I'm going to hit continue. So it's uploading the shape file, and I can see that there has been some mapping. Before I go through this mapping, I'll just quickly share what I have uploaded. So these are the files that I had uploaded, and I can see here there's a file called PI, and it's not a part of Aspec standard. I've got a few attributes here, which have been mistyped, type X, listing X. So we'll see how GDV Hub actually captures these errors. And there are some logical, not logical, but there are some spatial errors as well, like this pipe is outside, this conduit is outside the area of extent boundary. And I can see there are conduits, but there are only a few conduit bits. And there are some checks which checks the relationships between these 2 layers as well, and the features between them. And we'll see how GDV Hub will capture these issues. So a brief on that, and I can see these layers have been mapped. So we've got a toggle button here, which is swapping the schema mapping direction. So if I press on this, I'll see my submitted source classes on the left and the target mapped on the right. And I can easily see that there's an extra class PI which cannot be mapped to anything else. So I'll hit continue at this point. So we've got a number of checks in this process, and all the checks are doing sequentially. So there are few read user supplied data tasks. We've got a few internal tasks to calculate the necessary parameters or do some necessary calculations. And then we've got a credit check task, which checks if you have got enough credits for to run the process or not. But we'll discuss about the credits and the payment process in future slides, later slides. For right now, it's paused over here, and I need to hit resume because I do have enough credits. So I'll hit resume. And yeah, now we can see there are a few errors that have been highlighted. So this one says check for excess layers, 4 out of 5 features valid, which means there's one feature which was invalid. So the excess layer that I showed earlier, PI was an excess layer, and that has been highlighted here. There are other errors as well, and we can go through these errors by clicking on the view results on map button on the top. If I click on this, I can see the, if I click on the right panel, I can see the same list of checks and tasks that were previously done. So if I click on the check for access layers, which has got a orange sign here, I can, and then go to the report button, I can see that there's a non-conformance and supplied class PI failed check access class. So it's checked for access class and found a access class called PI, and that's what's highlighted here. So if you've got any other classes which were access, it would be under this task. Similarly, checking for missing attributes, looks like we've got some missing attributes here. If I click on report, I can see non-conformance, HE walls, the layer HE walls failed, missing attributes, and the missing attribute was type. So, so there was no type attribute in the HE walls layer. Similarly, there was no easting attribute in the HE walls layer because we had mistyped it into type X and easting X. So, so we'll find those easting X and type X as an excess attribute. So yeah. Similarly, we've got attribute type checks, which checks for if it's the correct attribute type. We've got attribute length and precision checks. So one of the example here is the layer conduit failed attribute length check and length and precision check on attribute conduit eastings. Yeah, similarly, we can go through all of the errors that we found. And I'll go through some of these errors. So let's check the relationship errors. Here, so clicking on the report. So these are now feature level kind of errors. I can click the target button to see or zoom into the feature that failed. So this feature failed the rule. The endpoint of the underground conduit must fall inside the boundary of underground conduit pits, but we have not supplied enough conduit pits, and that's why this conduit failed this rule. So there is no conduit pits on either side of the conduits, hence it failed these rules. So we've got a couple of conduits that fail these rules. We can jump to to the last one as well. And this one shows that this conduit pit should actually fall inside the area of work extent, but it's outside the area of work extent. So hence, these kind of spatial errors are also detected by GDV Hub. The other type of errors, we've got attribute-based foreign key relationship checks. So if I zoom into this, I can see it failed the rule conduit pits dot conduit pit number must be referenced in either the conduit start pit number or the conduit end pit number. But if I look into the feature of this, I can see the conduit pit number is 39A. But if I click on the conduit here and look at the conduit start pit number, it's M8, or the end pit number, which is M18. So that's why this bit failed the rule. Similarly, we've got code list value checks as well. I can click on this button, the zoom button, and I can see that this feature with an identifier S6M5 failed the code list check on attribute status because of the value in use. So if I click on the feature, the status is in use, and it failed this check because the actual value or the allowed values in status is uppercase in use. So there's a string mismatch, case mismatch here. Yeah, similarly, we can find other issues. These are all for in use, but let me see if I can find some other issues. All of them were errors in different features, code list errors due to the value in use.
Can we see this information in a report now?
Yep. Okay. So yes, after we've gone through these checks, we see that the submission has been rejected due to these non-conformances, and I'll hit acknowledge. And after we've finished the submissions, we can get the report here, which is download the non-conformance CSV file, or download the shape file if it's got the geometry in it as well. So I can download these. I'll open up the shape file first, the CSV file first. So I've got an access class named PI, which I might need to delete from my file. I've got some missing attributes in the class name HEVAL, and those missing attributes are type and isting. Similarly, I've got some excess attributes in HEVALs, which are these two attributes. I need to check the length and precision of these attributes, which are under these layers. And similarly, I've got these features which failed the geometric errors, geometric checks, and I've got these code lists errors in these layers. So we've got a CSV report from of the non-conformances, and we have also got a shapefile which we can show here. I'll open up in QGIS. Right. And I've got the non-conformance shape and polygon. So I've got these two, polygon and line. So if I turn off the other input layers, I can see that these are the these are the non-conformances. And if I open up the attribute table, I can see the same thing. I saw it on the CSV, but right now I can see the geometry and I can make corrections as I want on my data set. So that was the validation process. Where
So is there a report that shows that I can show?
Yes, we've got a summary PDF report as well. So we've got a PDF view report, and if I hit generate PDF, got it downloaded, I can see that the submission was rejected due to non-conformances. And if I scroll below, I can see there were some excess layers, some missing attributes, excess attributes, and geometric errors as well. So this report tells us it's been rejected and due to the non-conformances.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that was the validation. Now I'd like to go through correction. Here is the same process, a similar kind of process. Here we are doing logical corrections on the schema of your file, submitted data. For example, correcting the attribute types, correcting spelling mistakes, those kind of things. So I'll submit the same data again. I'll load up the data again, hit continue. And here now I can actually map these. I'll quickly swap the direction. I can see that HE walls, I can now map the easting. I know the easting is easting. Easting X is maps to easting. Type X maps to type. So I've got these mappings, and I can easily see there's a tick here, which shows that all the mapping are available. So pipe, I know PI was the layer called pipes. So if I choose the pipes, I can it's automatically mapped all these attributes. For example, if you have a process which always generates these attributes in a certain attribute naming convention, perhaps ST name is actually outputted as street name, then we can map this and manage schema mapping and save this mapping for future use. So it's taking its time today. Let's try again. And it's schema mapping. Looks like it's taking its time, but yeah, there it is. So I can save my mapping here, demo mapping, and for future use, we can automatically apply. We can choose the mapping, and we don't really need to go through attribute mapping one by one. So next step, hit continue, and we'll go through the similar kind of the rules checking. So it does highlight the attributes that that were missing from the supplied file, but we know that you have mapped those attributes. And because they are in this file that I submitted, there are certain errors that we can't fix. So this submission will be rejected due to non-conformances. Since, as Andrew mentioned, we are only correcting those logical corrections like the spelling mistakes or attribute type conventions. So so here this will not produce a corrected output. We can only get the non-conformances shapefile or CSV files. So I'll run a submission against a another file. Sample. So here I'm mapping some attributes. So easting X to easting, the age tree to age, which is the correct attribute name. Continue. And this will generate the corrected shapefile based on the mapping that we have provided. And we can submit that file to the authorities. Yep. So hit resume. Although it's displaying that the attributes are missing and they're excess attributes, but we have provided the mapping. So at this point here, we don't have any other errors like a code list value error or a foreign key or geometric errors, which we can't correct automatically. So we are now able to resume, and we can get the corrected output file. So it's created the corrected shape file. So hit resume, and hit continue. So it's producing the output files, and we can download the output corrected output file. So I'll just open this folder here and show it in QGIS. So the easting and photo ref, these attributes, they were easting X and northing X. So now they've the attribute name has been corrected. Check on the trees as well. Table. Yep. So yeah, it's corrected those attribute mappings which we provided. Yes, for the age of trees as well, age of trees. So we can get these corrected files.
Is that the file that then gets submitted to the referral authority?
Yes, that is. So we've got a report here and generate PDF. And you can see the submission was successful, and the file that produced is to be submitted to the referral authority. So this was the user view. If there is a administrator, we can see the different the dashboard of all the submissions done by multiple users in your organization. We can see the different submissions per day, or even check on submissions. So we can view the submissions different users have provided, and we can download the corrected output files and the reports from here as a administrator directly.
Okay, thank you, Assis. I'll just reshare my screen. And open it up for client data. Gabby, have there been any files that have been sent through?
Hi, Andre. I've got one file only.
Okay. So did you want to run through that file and show?
I can do so.
I'll let you share
right.
your screen.
I shall do so. So this is this is completely unknown. I have no clue how this is going to come out. So I'm going to just use the corrections one, I'll just do the corrections. Let's see how that goes. That's taking a big chance. Sorry. I want to go to my assignments. I want to go here. Apologies, and start a new submission. And I'll drag this one in there and run it. Just while it's running, you can also use this process to check whether the data that you are submitting is compliant with the structures that you want to submit to. So, all right, so I've got pipe splits and crop, and the area extent is not mapping, so I'll go and map area extents to D area extent, and that's it. Notice that all of these ticks are all green, which means that the attributes in there are all good. So this is a nice one so far. Let's have a look, see. So uploading it. Okay.
Looking good so far.
Yeah, looking good so far. So just so everybody understands it, over here, it tells me that it's paused, and what it's doing is there's a check to see whether you've got enough credits. So when you're doing it, if you get to that pause, the resume to continue or acknowledge means that you'll take a credit, and you just have to scroll down to get to the resume, and it will then continue on with that process. And here we've got things happening. So check for excess layers, check for valid spatial references, create that. So there's some issue with the SRIDs, possibly. We'll have a look at that shortly. Check for valid feature relationship error. So that one, I'm just quickly looking at that, a pre-look, and we'll have a look at the details of the data as we go. And by the way, while I'm going, if you want to send another file in, we'll probably have time for a few more. So what's this one? Check for valid foreign key relationships. This is the same one that that the other submission that Assis showed had failed on. And so here we can see that there are some of the PITs or HE wall IDs that does not appear in the pipe references. So that's something that one needs to go and have a look at. So yeah, I'll
scroll up. Yep. If you scroll up into the map view, yep.
I have to say that I've had issues with my map showing up, and that's just because of the browser that I'm using. Okay, that was good. Okay, and I want to go and look at this particular error. See how that goes in terms of that map. I see this is what happens to me, and I think it's the browser that I'm using is perhaps an issue. I'm just going to go to the CSV. I'll acknowledge this and go and look at my errors. I find that looking at these errors, like the error files, the non-conformist shape file, all those error files, that those things are really helpful. So if I go to the output, let's just make sure that and I'll just open it up here. Give me a seckie. So if I put that on here, just going from the top down, comparing the SRIDs, there's some issues there. Missing attributes, FID. Okay.
Comments, attributes. Yep.
Comments. In other words, these fields don't exist, and they should exist. Okay. This check attribute length and precision. This is similar to what Assis was talking about, these things. So I'll have to go and look at the detail in the shape file, but what this is telling me is that the precision on the eastings and northings is probably configured incorrectly. And so with all these others. Table geometric relationships. So in terms of that particular drainage pipe, probably falls outside of the area of works. I haven't looked at this at all. But from this set of errors, I can go and find the exact pipe or feature and drill down, go and look at it. Okay, that's that one. I just want to quickly see if I have any more. No more submissions. So is there anybody else who would like to who would like to send me some. And while you do that, I'm going to download the shapefile and extract that and have a look at that.
So just to clarify, that shapefile is a shapefile with all of the errors in it. Is that correct?
That's
Yes,
correct.
that's correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the CSV is a file that has all of the errors, even those that don't going to be in the shapefile because they aren't capable of being put into the shapefile. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So the CSV contains errors such as a class is missing, so we can't show that in a shapefile. So we populate them in the CSV. That's correct, Andre. Thanks for clarifying.
Just load these up. So these are the errors that I've received, or the error in the shapefiles. What I'd like to do is I'll just go open the attribute table, and you can see geometric errors, pits against the area of works. So if I load my area of works from that submission, if I can just find it. Then there you go. So that particular, those, I'm just going to turn the color, change the color so it's a bit better to see. All right. So you can see all of those errors that were outside. So there's a bunch of features that were outside. Let's see what's happening with that one that's inside. What was that all about? So property connection drainage pipes includes swale connections must touch. So there's probably a swale underlying that didn't touch. Sorry, I can't find the swale. How did I look at?
It's probably that, yeah, the rules on
There
should be an existing swale.
In the submission, this is what I've got. I know what it is. There is a swale center line, but there's no swale or anything associated with that. So that's a weird one. What was this one? Okay, now that's I wanted to query. I'm just going to turn all of these off. Property connection and drainage pipes, including swale. So that property connection and drainage pipes. So there's some error there. This is not clear to me at the moment. Please help me out. What is the meaning of this one? Geometries of property connection and the drainage pipe, including swales. So this the issue here is the property connection or drainage pipe. Including swale collections must touch.
Yes, so that's a property connection, property prop line, which should touch with a swale or.
Okay. You know what? There's no pipe or pit that this is connecting to. So I'm assuming that our message is not completely clear there. But the fact is that this is an orphaned connection and it's not connected to anything. which is what I assume is going to be the issue here. So let me just go and check if there's any other submissions. Nobody? No? Well, back to you, Andre.
Okay, I'll just start sharing again, and just bear with me for a minute. No, I'll stop sharing. So is everyone seeing my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So I think what we'll do now in the last few minutes that we have is just to define what a submission is. So when we talk about a submission, it is a discipline. And as Andrew indicated earlier on, we are currently supporting D and Aspec. Ospec is next and will be coming soon. And for the future, we'll be supporting the other BWS and TSpec for the future. A submission, when we process it, it can do, as was indicated by Andrew, we can do one or more of the disciplines simultaneously, but each discipline is equivalent to a credit. So it was alluded to earlier that it checks to see if you've got credits. So the way that we'll be working is that people will acquire credits for for doing their processes. So when we do a validation, it is a single credit, and when we do corrections, there are 2 credits. One of the benefits of the correction however, is that when you do a correction, you will have the ability to do 2 submissions under the corrections. Does that make sense to everyone? Any questions on that? Emma, is there anyone that's got their hand up? I'm not able to see.
Yeah, no hands up.
No hands up?
I think you covered it.
Okay. So other key points of note for membership of the GDV Hub, it is a necessity to be part of the GDV Hub community, and it gives you access to the Hub. We are proposing 2 different ways of people being able to access it. So paying as you use it, or pay per use, which will, or where you do it by a subscription, where you pay for a subscription for a set number of submissions. So the next steps, if you are interested in finding out more or actually using the GDV Hub, we'd encourage you to go to our website, gdvhub.com. You'll go there, and once you register yourself, we then send you through the details for access to the GDV Hub portal. We will be providing it free of charge until the end of December for people to have a play in the D and Aspec. And as was mentioned by Assis, when you do go in and use it, there is a sample data set that's available for you to work with, and it does have the errors in it, so you can have a look at how the errors are and take it from there. We encourage you to join the GDV Hub community, because when you do join the community, you do receive 4 free submissions. And we would also like to encourage anyone that is interested in being one of our testers for the GDV Hub. If you are interested, please get in contact with us at sales.australia@onespatial.com. We're more than happy to have you on board to go through testing and putting your feedback into how the system will work. And we look forward to other standards that will be coming on board as we progress the GDV Hub platform. If you want assistance for any of the Aspec standards information, we would encourage you to go to GISSA and George is going to be more than happy to answer any of those questions that you may have. With regard to the Aspec submissions, Gabby from Digital Hive is more than happy to answer any of those questions. And from yep.
Can I just add, Andre? For example, the error that we got, the wording there was slightly ambiguous, and now but I struggled initially to understand it. So if there's anything that you get that you don't fully understand the wording, talk to us about it, because we will be able to sort that out for you as well. Sorry about that, Andre.
Yeah, that's all right. And also it highlights where we may have ambiguities, and we can amend those ambiguities, and we only get that information from users. So if you are using it, you can give us feedback to help make the system more suitable for your purposes. And if you have for GDV Hub, the portal for registration, any issues with regard to the portal support, you should basically get in contact with OneSpatial. The rule of thumb is if you have any inquiries or any questions with regard to the GDV Hub, you contact support@onespatial.com, or you call us on our 1300 number. From there, depending on where it needs to go to, it will be farmed through. So if it's an Aspec inquiry, then it'll go through to GISSA or to George. If it's a Digital Hive or an Aspec submission issue, it goes through to Digital Hive. And if it's a portal issue, then it'll come through to OneSpatial. If there's no other questions, and I'm aware that we are a bit over time, if there's any other questions, we're happy. We'll stay online for a period of time. But from the team, I'd like to thank you for your time this afternoon, and wish you well. And we do look forward to working with you to ensure that your data is valid for submission to referral authorities for the Aspec standard.